Let me convene the Executive Committee of Wednesday, September 8th, 2021. And clerk, could you please call the roll?
Bates,
Here.
Berman,
Berman here.
Gavist. Ford,
Present.
Fraz,
Here.
Gums,
Gums here.
Kenyon, Caius,
Caius present.
Martin,
Martin present.
Molina,
Sanchez here.
Strathman,
Strathman here.
Surgis, Tepe,
Pepe here.
and Shepro.
Pro is here.
Quorum.
We do have a quorum. Ms. Bates, could you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I now please have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the August 4th, 2021 meeting?
Caius move.
Berman second.
Chairman seconds. Are there any adjustments or thoughts or edits to these minutes? And none, seeing none online. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bates,
Yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Gavist, did you arrive? Ford,
Yes.
Fraz,
Yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Molina, Sanchez,
Yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Surgis,
Surgis, yes.
Tepe.
Pepe, yes.
Do you vote, Mr. Shepro?
Oh, yes, sorry, I do.
Okay.
Yes.
It passes.
It
Oh,
passes.
yes.
Okay.
Was that a yes vote? Yes? Okay, very good. I know that we have some public comment. So I want to make sure that everyone knows that we have 3 minutes to talk. Please introduce yourself as well as your address. And then we'll time you for the 3 minutes because we have several speakers. Please do not use any offensive or derogatory language. And I'm sure that we'll find your comments to be very informative. So the first person who has signed up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Board Member Mohammed Iqbal.
Yes, thank you.
Sure,
I'm here.
welcome. And you have, if this is on the agenda, I was just handed a note, you'll have 5 minutes to speak.
Okay, thank you. May I proceed?
Yes, please.
Yeah, my name is Mohammed Iqbal. I'm a board member from District 19. And today I'm speaking as a taxpayer and a resident on the matter of a solar farm. It's not in my district. As you know, this farm is being proposed on the judicial campus south of sheriff's office and a coroner's building. There's an empty lot north of Peck, north of Fletcher. On the south of Fletcher are townhomes. I happened to run into this controversy. I am in favor of solar farms and clean energy, but for this location, I would oppose it. And I have 2 reasons for that. Number one, procedurally, Madam, you know, we have a development committee, we have a zoning board, and this is a change of zoning from one use to another. And I believe it should come through proper channel, come through the proper committee, proper hearing, before a project coming to exec committee or going to the board. What we have before you today, Madam Chair, is a contract between a company called GRNE and the county board or the county. The contract will be for 25 years, and this company will install and manage or maintain this solar farm. The expected output would be roughly 2 megawatts. Substantively, procedurally, I don't believe the committee should vote on it or even consider it today. It's not in the jurisdiction of Energy and Environmental Committee that is bringing this matter to you. On a substance matter, my background is both in engineering and law. I am a licensed engineer in Illinois and in many other states. Also, I'm a licensed attorney in Illinois. I have familiarity with the solar panel designs and so forth, and the litigation that pursue after are related to solar panels. I believe this is this contract that you have in front of you is ripe with litigation. As you know, we use photoelectric panels, and these photoelectric panels have glare. Glare causes injury to people and property in the proximity. And there are lawsuits based on that. And the legal theory is whether it interferes with the enjoyment of their property, their person, is it trespass to their property, or is it pure nuisance? No study has been done for this project about glare. I kept looking for the word glare in the contract and in the proceedings, in the PowerPoint presentation, nothing, totally nothing. There's a write-up that this committee would put trees on the south side to block the view of the panels from the neighbors. There is no design for where the panel would be. And more importantly, if you read the contract, it glares something jumps on you is a paragraph called insulation, which says you shall not put any tree, any foliage, any wall, any structure that will hinder the rays of the sun radiation coming to the photoelectric panels. And as you know, the tree grow and grow, and they cast shade, longer shades. So that tree's proposal is dead. It is violation of the contract the minute you sign it. And the contract says, this is a provision. Please read this provision very carefully. It says, this is irreparable damage, irreparable harm to this company, and you are liable for their loss of profit. So we are
Mr.
stuck with
Iqbal,
liability.
your time is up. Can you summarize, please?
Yeah, my summary is, please don't accept it. Send it back to the committee, or we should have even, should go to the development committee. But certainly it is not right for you to, it would not be wise for you to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Sherilyn Cameron. Ms. Cameron, before you begin, please, this is about a topic that's on discussion point today, correct? And so you'll have 5 minutes.
Sherilyn Cameron, and our address is 3810 Ridgepoint Drive, Geneva. Thank you for displaying the photo up there. I believe, well, these comments are in reference to the landscaping plan for the proposed solar farm. While I appreciate the county's efforts to display a landscaping plan, the reality remains that until the solar farm is actually engineered and put in place, we won't really know what can and cannot be screened with landscaping. That will be long after a 25-year contract has already been signed. It would be a horrible time to find out that the 4,800 solar panel farm built cannot be effectively screened from all the homeowners who live 250 feet away. What happens then? Pictures of the site don't seem to truly depict what it looks like in real life, although we have a zoomed in picture there, so it's a little bit more realistic today. The view from our house appears much closer than what pictures are shown, and undoubtedly 4,800 bright blue solar panels will catch your eye and become a focus right through any trees planted. Attempts to screen this view will undoubtedly be met with interference of solar panel energy production. We've already been told this would be an issue. So thank you again for listening and for reading the letters that we've sent to all the county board members. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Judge. And Mr. Judge, this is, I assume, to topic. Yes. 5 minutes.
Morning, committee. My name is Bob Judge, 3726 Ridgepoint Drive. Rare subdivision. Sorry. I also urge you to vote no towards this project today for a few different reasons. I'm going to list now quickly. Number one, I think the project is moving way too quickly, considering this project is going to last for 25 years. Our subdivision only found out about this a little more than a month ago, and we got more information on an August 3rd town hall meeting. If my math is correct, that's about 37 days of notice for something that's going to greatly impact our neighborhood and also your legacy as committee men of what you want to have built or not built on judicial property. Number two, we've been in contact with Ms. Ivy Klee back here for the past several weeks, and she's been wonderful to work with, considering landscaping, solar screening concerns, and other concerns that are going to potentially block our view. I don't believe much thought was given to this project about how it's going to negatively impact our neighborhood, because people seem to be surprised about our concerns brought up at the August 3rd town hall meeting of the view we're going to have, considering our elevation of our homes, our backyards, our porches, our patios. And I moved here from Elmhurst a year ago because of the beautiful scenery, landscape, prairie land, farmland, and close proximity to my house. Now this is all going to change. Number three, White and Company, the landscape architecture, we have not had them come on site to view from our porches and decks. We've asked them a few times, and to this point, we have yet to see them show up. And for the amount of money they're getting for this project, which is considerable, I'm told, I would expect an appearance from them to see from their own eyes, instead of the IT produced photographs that they have produced for us. Because what you see with your eyes is considerably different than what you see on the picture you saw up there. It is a drastic difference, drastic. Number four, the 4,800 or so solar panels are actually going to be produced in China by a company that's based out of Canada called Canadian Solar. I'm not sure this company has been vetted, whether the Chinese companies that build them are using forced labor or also violating human rights, which is a big consideration in today's world. And I think the president brought this up a couple months ago about, do we want to do business with companies that, use inhumane rights? My next point is driving by the judicial campus. You enter off Route 38, or if you're on off Peck Road, it is beautifully, meticulously landscaped. Outcropping, beautiful flowers, beautiful trees. And yet the back of the property that we're exposed to, you want to build a solar farm. I mean, to me, that's just almost like an oxymoron. Let's have a beautiful half campus and an ugly solar field for the back portion of the campus. My next point is the cost of lowering such berms. The north berm, which is basically a spoils pile, I'm told. Now, I'm not an engineer, I'm not an attorney. I'm just an average everyday citizen who worked hard, retired, and want to have a good life. I'm told it costs a lot of money to lower the berm more than 15 feet or so. I understand the project's going to save the county $198,000 a year in energy costs. I'm sure that's a considerable amount, but on the overall perspective of millions of dollars of the budget, it's probably a toothpick in a hay pile. I'm all for green energy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not up here to say I never want to see a solar panel farm in my property or around us, but I think just more research has to be done. I don't know that much about tax credits, but I know that these are being built in the past 5 years. They're going to continue being built in the next 5 years. And I think more research has to be done before you guys approve this, before you come in and approve the project. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Paul Cameron, are you here? Thank you. And Mr. Cameron, your wife has shared with me that you have taken now 9 days off from work because of this project.
I could be getting close to that
Okay.
in order to be able to attend these meetings that are so important. So
Thank you.
my name is Paul Cameron. I live at 3810 Ridge Point Drive in Geneva. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you this morning. I am speaking on the solar panel proposal, and hopefully, and I appreciate your time to listen to us today. Hopefully the emails that we've been sending to you all have found their ways to you, and I hope you've had an opportunity to look through the statements we've had to make. We appreciate the efforts that the folks from the Energy and Environmental Committee have made to work with us. Mavis and Ivy specifically have spent quite a bit of time trying to address some of our concerns. And while we've made some progress in some of those areas, I think what has significantly been missed in this whole planning project, and what I tried to call out in the email that I sent you all, was the berm pile, or what's being called the north berm. And I'll just read my letter to you, and it won't take a part of it, and it won't take too long. But what has become apparent throughout this process is that the planning and feasibility study that were done for the project failed to take into account the aesthetics of the site from the existing neighborhood and the costs that would be required to reach an acceptable compromise with the residents. Specifically, the county maintains that a part of the solar field must be built on top of the existing construction spoils pile, AKA the north berm. Now that the costs to regrade the site correctly are being considered, it is estimated to be too expensive to make the project feasible. As a result, these concerns are being ignored, and the project is being pushed along without the necessary site changes. And as I called out, it's not too late to change this. The path of this project is in your hands. We've tried to be good neighbors. We tried to cooperate, but there was a piece of this proposal that just was not addressed very early on in the planning. And as a result, now you're forced with a difficult decision to just stop it because those concerns weren't factored into the work that should have been done a long time ago. So I would appreciate your thoughts and concerns to that point of view, and that the perspective that this project will potentially provide our homeowners for the next 25 years, should this get approved. Thank you very much for your time.
I believe we have some other residents who would like to speak. Is there anybody else from the public who wishes to address us? None? All righty. Is there anybody online? No, seeing none. Well, then may I now please have a motion and a second to place these comments into the public record?
So
Mr. Shepro?
I second.
Mr. Frost, please.
Roll call.
Vote on that.
Yeah.
Please call the roll.
Okay, Bates,
Yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis, did you arrive?
Yes, Davis has been here, just bad connection.
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Thank you. Ford? Ford?
Yes.
Got it. Braz?
Raz, yes.
Gums?
Yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
Caius?
Caius, yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Molina? Sanchez?
Yes.
Strathman?
Yes.
Surgis?
Surges, yes.
Tepe?
Tepe, yes.
And Shepro?
Shepro, yes.
That passes.
Coffee cup has a leak. Our monthly financials, Mr. Onsick, please. Glad to see you here today.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. In addition to the report that is included in the agenda packet, the budget versus actual report for the county board office, farmland preservation, et cetera, I do have a couple of presentations I'd like to run through quickly for you. One is the health insurance fund budget. It's the first one here. This was not available at the committee of the whole, so I wanted to provide it for you this morning. So what went into preparing the health insurance fund budget is that right now we're looking at the budget, which incorporates all of the positions that are now included in the proposed budget for 2022. So there is an increase in the number of positions, which has led to an increase in the total budget. One thing to point out for those of you who might have been interested or following along is that fiscal year 2022 is the fourth year of a four-year plan in which we're moving all of the individual plan and coverage rates to an 83% employer contribution and 17% employee contribution. So this will be the first year in which it's across the board, which will make all of our calculations going forward much easier. The health insurance rates increased an average of 7%, 7.2% for PPO and 6.9% for HMO. There's also been an additional tier created where we separated what used to be employee plus children and family. They used to have the same rates for each of them. They have now been separated into two different rates, with the employee plus children rate being lower than the family rate. This had an unanticipated consequence, I guess you could say, that it did increase the overall contributions by 2.4%. But we were required to do this based on a settlement of a union grievance. Dental insurance rates remain flat, vision insurance rates remain flat, life insurance remain flat, and the broker fees remain flat. So all of that is what was factored into this budget. So that this is the one fund in which all the employee contributions and all of the employer contributions are accumulated. So I've tried to split it out by the various components. And so in the revenue column, you see what's going into the fund, and then the expense column is the estimated expense that goes out of the fund. There's also an estimate of retiree contributions, and that's based on the last 12 months of retirees, and it fluctuates from year to year. The employer contribution, it's difficult to estimate, but it ranges between $35,000 to $40,000. And this is the contribution or the expense to the county of the 10% subsidy for the retirees who qualify for that. Then you have the dental insurance expenses and the contributions. Down at the bottom, we have the $10,000 flexible benefit administration expense. And then we also have some investment income of 0.4% on $7.5 million average balance, which yields about 30,000. So it's a balanced budget. That highlighted line where you have for MERP contributions, that's the medical expense reimbursement plan, that those are for employees who choose to opt out of the county's regular insurance. I have a little bit of detail here. The actual, and this is based on 12 months expense. The expense for premium reimbursements is about $53,000. FICA expense for those reimbursements is $4,000. The medical expense reimbursements are about $129,000. And then the shared savings with the company that administers the MERP program is $158,000. So total expense is $345,000, but we've actually are budgeting the maximum possible cost, which is $817,000. So that yields a margin of $472,000. So it's that margin that if we go back to the previous screen here, that yellow highlighted line, way off to the right there, that's $6,623. That's what we need to balance the budget. So we're pulling that out of the MERP budget, which still leaves a substantial margin there in case we do have more expenses than we would anticipate based on actual track record. So the total change from year to year is almost $3.8 million. Again, it's the result of an average 7% rate increase. There's also that additional 2.4% increase as a result of separating the tiers for employee plus children and family. And then there's the remaining 10.6% increase as a result from an increase in the headcount that's built in to the 2022 budget since 2021. I now have a presentation on the general fund, but I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the health insurance fund budget.
Are there any questions? Yes, Mr. Surges.
Joe, if I'm not mistaken, as a self-insured entity, there's several tiers that go into putting together these costs. The percentage increase is mainly driven by our actual losses at the county, not an increase by Blue Cross Blue Shield. Am I correct?
That's correct. It's based on our own experience. It's also, they do factor in general experience in terms of trends, but it's primarily the result of our own county experience.
And I just wanted to share that information out with everybody and then point out, and I know it was just one line item on a screen of a very busy man, but getting to the pure 1783 split has been an accomplishment that Joe has been working on for years. And I know that might glaze over everybody and say, what's the big deal? It's a very big deal in terms of our union contracts and negotiating and making, and it just simplifies everything that we have to do from this point forward. And I really have to hand it to Joe. When we brought this to him years ago, he rolled up his sleeves, said, here is the plan. We will incrementally do this. And by this year, we will be pure on this. And he has delivered that. And I just want to thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for those comments and thank you, Mr. Onzek. I have one question. Anecdotally, I have heard that we have spent of last year about $1 million on COVID related cases. Did that have any impact on the 7% raise in our insurance rate?
I don't have that detailed knowledge to know what extent. These rates came from our insurance broker, who was the one who was in the mix of all of those figures. I'm not sure to what extent COVID impacted it. I do know that our actual expense in total is what led to the rate increase. And so to the extent COVID was a part of that, I'm sure it did impact it.
Okay. Is there any way that perhaps at our next meeting, you can have the time to just to drill down to find out what that actual expense is? Because that should be something that we should be at least acknowledge to make sure that our employees maintain the best health they possibly can.
Sure. I think Human Services Committee does provide all of that detail. That might be an appropriate place for it, but I can also try to provide that to the executive
Okay.
committee as well.
Okay, thank you.
Jamie, is that something that you might have offhand, or is that, can we bring that to committee and drill that?
I do have that offhand if you'd like to discuss it now, as we were looking at it earlier. So if you'd like to hear about it now, I can have that information.
Would you like to hear about that information now? Because I believe it may have a direct impact upon this cost. Yes, please.
We did have just shy of $1 million in total cost for COVID treatments for people on our health insurance plan. That out of a roughly 12 to $13 million in total expenses. So it's just shy of 10%. So that did have an impact on the increase in our total claims costs. So it would then have a resulting effect on our total premiums for the next year. It does not include the cost of testing and other things. That was strictly treatment costs for COVID-19.
Okay. Are there any questions about this?
Well, sure. Is that reimbursable out of any committee?
But even so, if it is reimbursable, there's an impact on less money spent on other things that may be preventative, that may be good for our environment, that may be good for social welfare. $1 million, in my estimation, is a significant amount of money. So it's, I just wanted to call that to your attention so that we're aware of the actual cost here in Kane County of taking care of our employees to make sure that they get back to health and get back to work. Yes, Ms. Bates.
Thank you for bringing that up, Madam Chair, because I think it emphasizes the true impact of COVID on our, it helps to emphasize the true impact of COVID on the county.
Mhm. Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you both.
Okay, this is the general fund summary. Now that the budget has been completely compiled, all the presentations were made as of the last committee of the whole meeting. So at this point, the difference between the budgeted revenues and the proposed budgeted expenditures is $15.5 million. And then this just kind of goes through a few different screens. It's really for your information. I don't need to spend much time on this. The detail behind all of these figures was provided all along the way at the various committee of the whole meetings by the individual departments. But what I've tried to do here is just compile it all in one place so you can see, first of all, like how the revenue is doing. At this point, it's about $6 million in total below what we had budgeted for last year. You can see that some departments and offices have increased their revenue budgets. You can, for example, the recorder is at the top of the list with an increase of $650,000. And then you go down the line and you can see where within the circuit clerks area, their revenue from fines and fees is down by $400,000. You have the state's attorney's fees down by $1 million. And then we have general government revenue that's almost $5.7 million. That decrease is primarily the result of not having yet factored in any drawdowns from the reserves to help balance the budget as we had last year, had done last year. Similarly, we have the expense budget. I have it listed in descending order of increases. So you have the largest increases in the state's attorney and the sheriff's area, and then on down the line in descending order here by amount. And again, the details of what's behind all of these changes can be found in all the individual presentations that have been provided. So altogether, bottom line expenditures are up almost $9.5 million compared to last year. And then the net, this is by individual department. It's the difference between the revenue brought in and the expenses incurred by each individual department. And again, it's in descending order. The general government revenue department is all by itself, and that's that same $5.7 million increase to the budget gap. State's attorney is a net increase of 3.7 million, sheriff 2.7 million, circuit clerk 1 million, and on down the line. And so this is what leads to the $15.5 million gap. Just briefly, just to kind of break it out by classification, you can see that the transfers, which are mostly composed of those drawdowns from the reserves that we utilized last year, are not yet in the budget this year. So that accounts for almost $12 million. Charges for services are just slightly down by 155,000, fines slightly down 80,000, property taxes. The reason why it's down is it's not that we're reducing property tax, it's just that the general fund's overall share of property tax revenue has been reduced in order to shift more of it to the FICA fund, the IRMRF fund, and the insurance liability fund. Then we have increases in license and permit fees, reimbursements, and then other taxes would include sales tax. Buried in there would be the new tax for cannabis sales, and also income tax revenue, personal property tax revenue, all contributes to that increase of 5.2 million. But overall, still, revenue is down $6 million. And then these are expenses by classification. You could see that the largest increases are in salaries and wages. So it's both the actual 2% increase that is built into the budget, but several departments have built in market adjustments as well. And then you have the increase in employee benefits, which is primarily health and dental. And some of that increase is related to the increase of additional employees. Contractual services are up $1 million, and then the others are lesser increases. I just tried to put together a list of what we can begin thinking about, what you should begin thinking about as far as what could help reduce this budget gap. We have about $2 million balance remaining in the property tax freeze protection fund that we normally apply to the budget gap. So that would be $2 million. You could consider authorizing the 1.4% CPI limited property tax increase, which would reduce it by $792,000. If the approval of the refinancing of the 2013 bonds, if that's approved by the board, and if we are successful in achieving a lower interest rate, it's estimated that would save $135,000 each year. There's another idea where we could, every year we have been taking $1 million out of the general fund and contributing it to the capital fund. One thing to consider is this year not doing that, but instead taking $1 million out of the savings that were generated by the COVID payroll reimbursements. We also are conducting the cost of service study right now, on which we'll have recommendations on how to adjust our user fees. The last time we did that, it increased our revenue by $750,000. So assuming costs have increased similarly, I'm just plugging in that $750,000 as a possible increase. Then we have the establishment of the state's attorney's office, different units, the mental health unit, the abuse and neglect unit, the domestic violence unit, and then the related public defender abuse and neglect attorney additional expense. All of those items were funded by COVID money in 2021. So we could consider funding it temporarily by the savings from COVID in 2022. Then the state's attorney did bring to our attention that we could increase the local motor fuel tax from 4% to 8%. That would bring in an additional $8.7 million. The only way that could be applied to the general fund would be if we were to in turn then reallocate the RTA sales tax from KDOT to the general fund. But it needs to be done very carefully so that there is no negative impact to KDOT, and so that they really need to be consulted and to what extent, if any, this can be done. And then there's also the obvious thing where we can postpone the compensation adjustments that have been built into the budget and postpone some of the positions that have been added to the budget. So based on the things I've itemized, we're already down to a $9.8 million budget gap. The things that are left blank might be able to be to bring it down completely to zero. So this is what we should be thinking about over the next few weeks. We need to have the budget balanced by the October board meeting so that the budget could be presented or placed on public display by the end of the month. Are there any
Question,
questions?
please? Madam Chair?
Yes.
So,
Ms. Banks.
under increased local motor fuel tax, you didn't put a number in there.
Correct. Well, I put in parentheses,
The 8 million, is that-
8.7 million is how much,
At the increase or?
that is the additional amount of revenue that generates.
Okay,
But whether or not, I mean, the amount that we could actually use to balance the budget would depend on KDOT and
oh, I get it.
what,
Okay,
what is feasible for them.
spending. All right, thanks.
Ms. Dronsick, there was another proposal that was brought forward by the state's attorney, which would be a countywide sales tax.
Yeah.
And that would then, if the board decided to move in that direction, that would be placed on potentially the November 22 ballot. And that revenue if passed by the county, by its voters. That money revenue would be coming in at what point? Would that come in 23 or 24?
The timeframe is different than what you're mentioning. I did not understand that it could be placed on the November ballot.
The November 22 ballot, not the primary ballot, which takes place in June.
Okay, a year, I see. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, I missed the 2022 year. So then if that were the case, I believe it would be the following January, so that'd be January 2023.
23, okay. And the potential revenue from that would be 15 million, is that correct?
That may be an overestimate. What I've been doing further research, that was the original estimate if you were to look at sales tax revenue brought in by all of the sources, which would include general merchandise, food and drug, qualified food and drug, and then there's also what they call titled personal property. It was all three categories, but from what I understand, the special tax only applies to general merchandise, which is a smaller subset. And I'm trying, actually, I was trying to work last night to try to figure out how I can isolate that figure. So it would be less than that $15 million, but still a fairly significant amount, probably more than we need to balance this year's budget. But of course, that would be in 2023.
We didn't mention a percentage.
It goes from, I think, quarter points
Yeah.
to 1.5%, is that correct?
I think the maximum is 1%, if I remember correctly, but a 0.25% increase would yield around less than 15 million, but let's say 13 million roughly.
So if that's a penny on the dollar, is that correct? If it's at full 1%, is that what we're looking at?
No, the 0.25% yields the 15 million that you first referenced, that's only 1/4%. You would multiply that by 4 if you're going to go to the entire 1%.
Okay, okay. Very good. And this, one other question. The increase in local motor fuel tax, once, if that were to be passed, can that also be then rescinded?
I believe so. Because it's a county board decision.
If the board decided to go in that direction? Mhm. Okay, okay. That's all the questions I have right now. Are there any other questions? Mr. Frost?
I would just ask Mr. Anzac as our expert to just stay aware of the ARP meetings that we're going to be having, and just keep your eye out for anything that is going to be available in the American Rescue Plan that we'll be discussing, that anything that we can apply to this to reimburse ourselves. You know, we just heard about $1 million in COVID costs. So as far as suggestions, I would just say, I think we really need to comb through that to make sure there's anything we can do, even if it's $500,000 or $5 million. I think that's where that money should go first.
Yes, Mr.
Sturgis. Joe, can you just briefly, the property freeze protection fund, how did the money get into that? Or how does it get into that?
Every year when we close the year, we take any savings that we've achieved during the year. Normally it's the operational savings, and we place part of it. What we've normally been doing is placing part of it in a capital fund, part of it in the property tax freeze protection fund. And the whole point of that protection fund was to try to delay increasing the property tax as much as possible by using this money first when trying to balance the budget. And it also has been a source of funding for unbudgeted salary or wage increases that are for union agreements that have not been settled yet.
So boring.
And I just don't want, I don't want the general public or newer board members to look at that and say, that was a fund with a finite amount of money that we continue to draw from. It's not. It's a fluent fund where extra goes in and when needed comes out. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing that I'd like to address is that we saw that there were increased expenses due to COVID that were not just employee related, they were public related. The coroner's budget went up significantly. I know that we've had, I believe, 830 people now counting who have passed away due to COVID, along with other things. But this 830 was, I would assume, an additional expense that came through him. My concern is why I'm addressing this is that COVID is still rampant here and there's an actual cost to that. I believe our state's attorney and judiciary have pivoted beautifully to be able to accept electronic funds now, payments for their fees, which was not the case previously. But we have to keep very much in mind the cost of the pandemic on county services and potential lack of revenue that may be happening because of it until we get our economy truly back in place again. So these are going to have to be things we have to be mindful of as we're projecting costs for next year as best as we can. And perhaps lack of revenue. Yes.
Well, and we also need to look at the budget, at the requested expenditures. They're requested, and we need to evaluate whether or not, in fact, they're going to be approved.
Agreed. No, I
And
agree.
so we can't just, our baseline is not the ask. Our baseline is how much money we have available, and then we have to balance the ask against what the resources are. And we still have to remember that every increase in revenue that we have is an obligation that we hand to our constituents to pay higher taxes in one way or another. So we need to be very cautious in the world that we're talking about here, where COVID is causing everybody issues to trip into tax increases of any.
To be as, let's put it appropriately, to be as conservative financially for the next year or so as we possibly can be, while still providing excellent services to the county. Right.
Much more melodious than my comment.
Are you quoting our mission statement again?
Are there any other questions, for Mr. Onsick? No, thank you very much. We should put it on file. Yeah, Mr. Shepro, would you please like to make the motion to put these financial statements on file?
I would just ask unanimous consent that be placed on file.
Thank you, thank you. Unanimous consent?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Celeste. Yeah, it's sobering. I have to say, when you start looking at budgets, it's very sobering. Is there any old business? None? No, is there any new business? So let's go over to our preliminary county board agenda. Mr. Sanchez, could you present 3 items from the American Rescue Plan?
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the first 2 together. The third will require an amendment. Second, to move items 1 and 2. Mr. Fraz.
Berman, second.
Okay.
We've discussed those in committee. I don't know if there's any questions anyone has. The first one was just approving the emergency purchase for consultant services to complete our reporting that was due on August 31st. And we worked with the company KEB that we used last year for the CARES Act. They did a very good job. We got everything in on time and it looks good. The second one is allocating the actual lost revenues that we have seen. We created the allocation of $7.4 million, I believe, last month, and Mr. Onsick provided actual figures of lost revenues by department that are eligible for recoupment, and that's what the second item relates to.
So clerk, could you please call the roll on that then?
Bear with me on this, it's been a while.
Call
We're
these-
gonna do the first 2 together as, and
Together.
Fraz and Berman move that, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so let's do that. Bates,
Yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis. Ford,
Yes.
Raz.
Yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Molina, Sanchez,
Yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Deppie, yes.
and Shepro.
Yes.
That passes.
Passes.
Then,
Okay, the third item, it's reimbursing county's COVID-19 related expenses. Mr. Onsick came back and realized that some of those expenses were incurred before March 3rd, which is the beginning of eligibility for the American Rescue Plan Act. So I would like to, there is an amended Exhibit A and B for this item, and I'd like to move it with those changes. Can we do that?
What does that change the number to?
Mr. Onsick sent an email out last week. You would have to look at that for the details of it. I don't have it off the top of my head unless you do, Joe. Yeah, okay, I didn't think so. He provided the tables and the exhibits.
Well, it was in excess of $4.1 million. It's reducing that by how much?
Well, basically, that's the revenue loss resolution. This one is more in the range of, I think, about $1.1 million. And some of that, instead of being taken from the American Rescue Plan money, is now going to be taken from the COVID savings money that we have because it's not eligible.
It's $1,700,585.18. Yep.
Yes, that's the total, and it's broken down. That's the total expenses that were incurred, and that's broken down in the amended resolution into two portions. Roughly half of it would be reimbursed through the American Rescue Plan Fund, and the other half would be reimbursed through the savings that were reserved from the payroll reimbursements. And the reason why it's broken in half is because only the expenses that were incurred since March 3rd can be reimbursed by the American Rescue Plan. So the remainder will be reimbursed by the special reserve fund where those savings from the COVID reimbursements are sitting.
And this is in addition to the $4 million. So, correct? Or is this inclusive of that
It's in addition to.
in addition to? Is that correct? This is an additional expense.
Yes.
So, Tepe here, so that means that it's about $500,000 that would addition that's coming out of the ARP funds?
Yes.
Okay.
And we are keeping a chart of an Excel spreadsheet of how much money we've reimbursed ourselves at this point out of that total of $103 million. Is that correct? So we know what the drawdown has been so far?
Yes.
Okay. It'd be nice to get a report on that with your committee so we can keep aware of what we are reimbursing ourselves for as we start planning out how we give money out to the community. It'd be helpful. Know what our budget is. Okay, are there any other questions?
Okay. This is Bates.
Yes.
This is with the amendments, accepting the amendments, correct?
Number 3.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis. Ford,
Yes.
Raz,
Yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Guys, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Molina, Sanchez,
Yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Sturgis,
Surges,
yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Shepro.
Shepro, yes.
Passes.
Very good. Ms. Bates?
The Energy and Environmental Committee would like to put forth for the consent agenda, authorizing refuse and recycling services for the Mill Creek Special Service Area. I'd like to move and I'd like to ask for a second.
Raz seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Fraz. Jennifer Jarland, Ms. Jarland is on the Zoom call if there are any questions.
Are there any questions?
Sorry, who's second? I went blank.
Raz.
Mr.
Okay.
Foss?
Thank you.
Are there any questions? Hearing none, could please call the roll.
Bates,
Yes?
Berman, yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Raz,
Yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Molina, Sanchez,
Yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Shepro.
Shepro, yes.
Passes.
Passes. Thank you. Mr. Berman?
Yes, on the finance consent agenda, I'd like to remove item 7 for discussion. Are there any other that we'd like to remove?
21, please.
21? Any other?
Anything else?
I move that the finance, or that we approve items 1 through 6, 8 through 20, and 22. Using the Dewey Decimal System rather than the alphabet today.
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez? Jeffy would like to second that.
Are there any questions or comments? Hearing
Mr.
none.
Berman's age is showing when he remembers the Dewey Decimal System.
But he forgets the alphabet.
I like the Dewey Decimal System. Please call roll.
Bates,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Raz,
Yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Deppie, yes.
Shepro.
Shepro, yes.
Passes.
Okay, passes.
Very good. Item number 7, approving a power purchase agreement and lease for solar energy with GRNE Solar Field 05 LLC. I know that Ivy would like to present.
Should we have a, before we do presentation, shouldn't we have a second to move it forward? Yes, Bates? No. Please, Ms. Ivy.
Good morning, Madam Chair and County Board members. I have a presentation for you all today on an updated landscaping plan for the project. So this resolution has been put forth at Administrative Committee, Energy and Environment Committee, and has been passed at both of those. We had an additional Energy and Environment Committee meeting on September 1st, a week ago, to bring forth more project details and a landscaping plan. And today I will be giving an updated presentation on that landscaping plan. And then after, I am happy to address some of the questions that were asked during public comment. On the line with me today on Zoom, I have Patty King, Senior Landscaping Architect at White and Company. We've been working with White and Company to develop a landscaping plan and work with the residents. Patty, if you want to take it away. Does anybody not have presentation slides in the room? Okay, all right, Patty, feel free to go ahead.
Great, thank you. It is definitely a pleasure to be here. I did want to address quickly some of the comments that the public had earlier in the meeting. We certainly feel like we do also need to communicate with you. We will make an opportunity to meet with you at your home. We definitely want to look at your view in person. We feel like that step needs to be done once the site's been engineered so that we can accurately and appropriately provide you information that is useful as opposed to concept plans. So if you, I beg your patience in the process. We're not done, but I just wanted to let you know that we absolutely will be meeting with you if all of this moves forward. So first, we have a couple of sections through the site. This is illustrating. So on the section, there's a purple line. So this is the farthest section on the west side, just south of Richard. You see, so we're like the second house into the west. So the gray box is representative of the homeowners there, their house. The elevation of the person standing there does in fact represent the height of their deck. So what we've included, and again, the scale of this is exaggerated in height versus length. So that's why everything looks tall and skinny. But you can see Bridget Road there, the existing bike trail. We're identifying item number 3 as some additional shade trees on the north side of the bike trail between that and Bridget. On the north side on the berm, we actually would like to include some additional evergreen trees. We feel like on this west end, if possible, we would like to try and expand the height of the berm. But again, this is something we need to review and look at once the site's engineered. There are existing trees that are there on site, and we do need to make sure that we're not going to damage those trees. So this is kind of my wish list of things that I'd like to do to help with the screening purposes. And then in item number 4, it illustrates the existing north berm height and where we think it might end up once the top of that is removed, down to about elevation 770. Are there any questions on this particular section? We have 3 in a row.
Yes, Tepe here.
Mr. Tepe.
One of the pictures later on shows the number of solar panels that are there. And am I led to believe that the elevation of the area that these solar panels on varies, and that the removal of this berm, as you're showing in number 4, there will be solar panels on top of that berm?
My understanding, so first off, we've not engineered the site, so there's not been a grading plan. There's still a lot of thinking work that needs to occur. We do understand that part of the berm at this point in time will be lowered. We initially think that we're going to lower that down to an elevation of 770. But again, we've not engineered the site. So our understanding is at this point that yes, there will be solar panels placed on top of the berm and down the sides. So we don't anticipate that this is a completely flat site from an earthwork standpoint. There is going to be some undulation, some contouring to the existing conditions.
Can you give me an idea on the difference in the elevation? So if I were to go from number 4 to the lowest point, which is close to number 1, what's the difference in the elevation of what you think might happen?
I believe the elevation should be on the cross point section. So in this first picture, the elevation of where we plan to build up the berm 4 to 5 feet should be right around 765 or I believe it's 760. And then the berm is currently at its highest point in elevation of 790, and we're planning to lower that by 15 to 20 feet. So that'll come down to 770. And then, so in this picture, the dotted line is where we visualize where the outline of the berm will be. So there's a 35-foot setback of where the solar panels can begin from the property right of way. So I can use my pointer. We believe the panels will start right around here, kind of right at the end of the southern berm, and then
Can you, we cannot see what you're highlighting.
okay, so right at the point number 1, if you were to draw a straight line through point number 1, that's where the solar panels will begin. They'll be put in that valley area. They'll continue along up on the northern berm, and then they'll continue on the north side of the northern berm.
So again, what you're saying is there's a 10-foot difference in the elevation between the lower point and what is the projected line for?
It's going to vary throughout the property site. So the highest point of the berm right now, which is, I believe, the image that we're looking at, it's currently at 790 feet. So that's going to come down to 770. And then based on this picture, I believe it should be right around 760 in elevation. Is that correct? Okay.
So approximately 10 feet.
Okay. Thanks, Patty.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes. Just Surges.
The little house on the bottom left in the gray box with the person standing on it.
Yes.
Is that where you said that was the deck height? Is that the
Yes.
top of the house? I'm
No.
not understanding.
It is not the top of the house. It is the top of the deck.
So, okay.
Their first floor level
Got it. So suffice it to say that if they had a window in a bedroom up on the second floor, it would be significantly higher than the little gray person.
That is correct. Yes.
I'm seeing a lot of head nods confirming that.
Wait, why are you saying no, Vern?
Because the deck is on the second floor.
No,
No,
you're mistaken.
I'm seeing from the audience what you just said has been confirmed.
Okay. And then in terms of the lowering of the berm, so I think that would be your number 4.
Yes.
It would be helpful to see how high, I don't know what the solar arrays, the panel, I don't know what the right language is, how those would sit on there.
Ivy, please correct me. I do believe that the panels and their appurtenances are approximately 5 to 7 feet tall.
7 feet,
Excellent.
7.5 feet.
Okay, great.
So my question would be to see something like this with a rendering that shows that line of sight, not from a person standing on a deck, but from that higher window or whatever, and the top of the array or appliance or whatever.
We do have a rendering from a picture of a second floor deck later on in the presentation.
I'm
Yes.
so sorry.
No,
I'm so
that's
sorry.
okay. And we do also have cross-section images with drawings of solar panels, if you would like to see those.
And I did see in the original packet, I think it was pages 18 to 21 that showed the blue panels is kind of that what you're referring to?
Mhm, yep.
Okay. So that is that line of sight from that second floor.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, any other questions on this slide? And if not, if we could move that to the next one. So this slide moves just to the east. So this is our third house from the driveway into the townhouse development. So again, you can see that at this point, the elevation of item number 3, the berm is a little lower. So we're going to drop that down again to the 770. But we continue to have, we feel as though the berm that is there and the existing vegetation that's there, we're not recommending at this point adding any soil to this section of the berm. But we will add additional evergreen trees. We do still have the additional shade tree that's identified between Britcher and the bike trail. And then again, this would represent the exterior deck elevation from the house. And we have one more section. So this is the far eastern section. Again, as we move farther east, the house is there, our existing shade trees, and then again, our evergreens on the south face of the berm itself. Next slide. All right, so here is a representation schematically of where we think the additional evergreen trees will be needed. There is more existing vegetation as you move farther to the east. So we feel as though because the land drops down, visually there's not, should not be an issue with that. But again, as we move forward through the design phase, we definitely will be looking through the neighbor's eyes and making sure that if we do need to add some existing vegetation or add some evergreens down towards the east end, that we will definitely do so. But we have in fact infilled in and tried to screen as much of this area as possible. And then you can see just south of Britcher, the additional shade trees in between the trees that are already there. Next slide. So here is a schematic. Again, this is a preliminary schematic of where the solar array will go. The blue lines represent rows of panels. They are offset 35 feet from the property line, which essentially lines them up at the north end of the berm.
There's the berm. It, just so I am orienting myself, where I see the dark wavy line, that is the berm. Is that correct? Am I seeing two berms here? Is that, you see at the bottom? You see the line of trees, and then there's a dark wavy line. Is that the
That is,
existing berm?
my understanding is that is the valley between the two berms.
So where it's dark is a valley, where it's light is a berm.
Right.
Mr. Tebby.
Thank you. Is there going to be a fence on the south side?
The fence, the solar panels will be secured with a fence. Our understanding is that that fence will be on the north side of the berm. So from Pritchard Road, you won't see it.
The fence has to surround the entire solar array. So we're planning to position the fence on the north side of the southern berm so that it's not visible to the residents. Like Patty said in the cross-section images, as you head further to the west, the southern berm does taper off a little bit, which is why we're planning to build it up a little bit more. But in areas where the fence will be seen by residents, the county is planning to upgrade the fence so it will be more aesthetically pleasing. And I have a slide on the fence and fencing estimates that we will get to. That's further on in the presentation.
And how tall is the fence?
7 feet. Any more questions on this slide?
No.
No? All right, Patty, I can jump in here for a second. So yesterday, myself, Chris Allen, Jody, and I met with a representative of HGTS Landscaping and Tree Service. We walked around the Judicial Center. So it turns out that there are going to be some parking lot additions to the Judicial Center, and there are some trees in the way of destruction as a result of the expansion of the parking lot. So we walked around the campus and we looked at some of the trees that are either mature, fully mature. The trees varied in sizes. So the next couple of slides demonstrate pictures of some trees that we are hoping to be able to spade and to replant as a part of this landscaping plan, so that we are not only recycling and repurposing trees that are viable and healthy that are in the way of destruction, but also being able to add more screening as a part of this project and at a lesser cost to the county. So that's a new update to this landscaping plan. I believe we have an estimate of 15 to 20 trees of varying species that we should be able to utilize as a part of the landscaping plan. We're still working with HGTS Landscaping and Tree Service to confirm that we can move some of the more mature and larger trees, but our idea is that these trees will be able to provide more screening to the residents because they are mature, whereas a lot of the trees that we would be planting from a younger age would not have the same type of growth as these trees do. So here we have, there were around 5 trees that are adjacent to the Judicial Center parking lot in the back past the gate. I believe these were all oak trees. These are maple trees, excuse me. And then I stood next to them so you can reference their size. So we had 5, we only have pictures of 3 of them. The next slide, we have Chris Allen. We found 3 oak trees that are in the way of the solar site. So these trees are in potential to be cut down so as to not shade out the solar array. So we figured it would be great to be able to move those and provide screening for the field. So those are the three oak trees are on the image on the right. Chris is standing next to them, so you can see how tall they are. And then the image on the left is a walnut tree. I believe there were 4 of those that we were able to use. There were also 2 other species of trees that were a little bit more rare that we should be able to use. They're also on the proposed solar site. And so we also took some pictures standing on the north side of the berm facing the residents. I know it's a little bit difficult to see, so please reference the printout that you have. So Jody and I took these pictures standing on the northern berm facing the residents. So you can visualize what screening is currently there. And our idea is to be able to provide infill where we see windows standing at this site. So if we see a window, that means that the window can see us. So our hope is to be able to provide infill in those gaps and those spaces. And that's what these images are here to demonstrate.
And if I may, Ivy, Mr. Sturgis, you can see the top of the windows through there. So that is the second floor. So Ivy, what you no.
I believe there is a little bit of both first and second floor.
Okay. Okay. These are all first floors, what I'm seeing right here? Okay. So that's where the deck would be coming out through as well. Yes. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions on this slide? So the next slide we have, this is a picture from the Cameron second floor deck, correct? Or first floor? First floor? Their main floor, excuse me. Okay. Okay. So this is the first floor site. This is their deck. The way that the home is built, it is on an elevation. So this is the main floor and the deck leading off of the main floor. This is the view. So this was a photo that I took at the Cameron's house when I went to visit. The photo on the left is a before picture, and then the photo on the right was created by White and Company. They were able to create a 3D rendering with the solar panels on the proposed site, and then also add some landscaping to that picture. So this picture was presented at the September 1st meeting. So this picture demonstrates the old landscaping plan. We have a picture with new landscaping that will be shown in the next couple of slides. And the arrow is just a point of reference for where that spruce tree is, just so you can see in the next couple of slides. The picture is a different orientation. So this is a picture off of the same deck. I stood at the edge of the deck to get this picture. This is a panoramic view. Again, you can see that green arrow as a point of reference for that spruce tree. So this is what the view looks like currently. And then we wanted to show a picture. So this picture was created by our IT department. We had them create a 3D rendering with the berm taken down 15 to 20 feet and the solar panels added. So this is a artist rendering of what the proposed site will look like, visualization. This is without landscaping. And then this picture, this slide represents the current new landscaping plan. We've added spruce trees and evergreen trees to provide more screening. Now that we're able to have we have the shading trees we'll be able to use from the King County Judicial Center. We'll be able to plant more spruce trees. So this image represents the solar panels in place, the berm lowered, and the spruce trees at their mature height. And the next slide just has all three images together so you can see what the progression looks like. Are there any questions on any of these?
Yeah, I think we probably have quite a few. Yes,
Where
Mr.
could you
Franz.
enlarge in the bottom of those three? Yeah, I firmly believe that the neighbors' concerns could be mitigated by the pine tree line. Although I do have some serious concerns, but I think that I know this is computer generated, but it speaks for itself. My questions are, what would be the starting height of the trees planted? You know, obviously, if you buy a 3-foot tree, most of us aren't going to be around by the time it's 30 feet. And then what, we have to have a species where the ultimate height is probably less than 30 feet, I would assume, to allow for the solar panels to receive light. So my question is, what's the starting height? What's the ultimate height? And if the neighbors are satisfied, will the solar panel operator be happy if we create shade for them?
So just to, Patty, if you want to touch on the starting height and the species and the ending height, and then
Sure.
I'll touch on the shading.
No problem. So we would anticipate the spruce trees being installed probably in a variety of heights ranging from 8, 10, and 12 feet. We can get them smaller, we can get them bigger, but we think that that's an appropriate place to start. Varying the size of the trees as well makes it look a little more natural when it goes in. If it's determined that we would like them all to be, 10 or 12 feet, we can certainly make that change. Ultimately, the spruce will get, 30 to 40 feet at full height, and approximately, 20 to 25 feet wide at the base. We do still need to talk with the solar panel company and share this information with them. So again, we're still in a conceptual phase, and we still have a lot of questions and issues that we need to work out.
Yeah, the 12-foot height, I think that's kind of what I had in mind as a starting point.
Okay.
The species, as long as we're careful with the spruces, because blues and greens are having a lot of trouble right now with blight. So we'd want something that was disease resistant. Thank you.
And in regards to the trees being tall to the point of shading out the solar panels, so we have done a little bit more research into this. So the property right-of-way line, there's a setback of 35 feet where the solar panels are able to start. And then we were able to capture a zoomed-in image of some of the current trees and screening that are already out there. So we were able to capture an image with a 50-foot spruce tree, and the sun at the point where the shadow going to the north was at its highest point, and that shadow did not exceed the 35-foot setback. So we are confident that when we're having discussions with the solar panel company, with GRNE Solar, that there shouldn't be any issues in regards to planting any of the trees and their eventual mature growth based on what is currently out there.
Yeah, I just think this picture says a lot. It's not again, it's computer generated, but even if it's marginally accurate, you can see it almost within a few years, it's gonna be blocking out the multi-story jail itself. So I think this picture is very important to remember.
I have, Ms. Strathman, if I may, a note was just presented to me, and I kind of agree with the comments of this. Many of us sitting on this board are, and I'm sure the audience members, residents as well, are all in favor of the solar field. But my concern is right now, sitting in this chair, is that there's a lot of detail yet that has to be worked out. And there are finite questions that need to be asked, with due respect, Ms. Bates, that I'm not sure that this committee is the proper committee to address all those concerns. The certain height of trees, the width of potential trees, whether it's a walnut or a pine tree, are all important issues to discuss, but perhaps not at the executive meeting in this depth of detail. The one concern, the red flag that I have, and again, I am in full support of solar fields. We have to move forward with this. There's absolutely no choice for our environment to look at renewable energies. I don't think anybody here on this board would disagree with that statement. But if you were potentially designing something that has not yet been confirmed by the installer of the solar panels, we could talk at length about height, size, width of tree. But if that's going to impact the solar panels and their efficiency, then this discussion is premature. Because I believe that has got, in my opinion, that does have to have some confirmation with that. So those are my thoughts with this. I don't know how you all feel with this, and I know that we're on a timeline. I appreciate the crunch and the expediency that we have to work with, but I don't know if we're ready to make these decisions yet, because we're not tree experts here. Mr. Frost.
Frost speaking. So maybe Mavis can answer this, but so today's discussion is really to enter into this agreement to purchase this power.
Correct.
So I agree. Maybe we are getting a little bit into the weeds actually.
Literally weeds.
Under the tree tops.
So yeah, I agree. I think we're trying to build the thing here today, and the goal, just so the neighbors know, is to enter into an agreement with this company. It doesn't mean the project's a done deal.
No, it's, that's,
The agreement is that we would purchase the power.
no. Ms. Strathman?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just for a point of reference, but under the green arrow, is that spruce tree there now? And what is the height of that tree?
Yes, that tree is there right now. Do we know the height of that tree, Jody? I'm not sure that we do.
The adjacent oaks that are to the left of the tree are about 50 foot tall. Those were the oaks we referenced when we looked at the shading potential with that 35-foot setback. So, I mean, just judging from that 50-foot high tree, I would say it's maybe 25 feet to 30 feet.
Okay, thank you.
And Madam Chair, if I may respond to your comment quickly. So today, the resolution is for the power purchase agreement and the land lease agreement. So the landscaping plan it will be the Kane County's responsibility, our department's responsibility, to work with the landscaping architect, to work with the neighbors, and to work with the solar company. So that is not being approved today. All that is being approved by the resolution is the PPA and the land lease. And then we do have some language in there that has been added that I will get to at the end of the presentation.
Well, yes, I believe we should table this conversation.
I would, if the question is to table the motion, I would vote against that.
No, just this presentation.
This, everybody did something for a living. I did this for 40 years. And you can't design a project at the console table. What we need to have, and projects don't go into final planning as they're approved. Nobody spends money, and you can't spend money because lenders won't allow you to spend the money. You can't go out and do final engineering and get the whole thing done as it's done without a contractual assurance that you can hand to the sources of your money that says, we can go ahead with this project. So today, what we need to do is to vote on the project. And then at some point in time, this committee will be presented with what is then the final plan. And my thought is we either like it or we don't, but I'm telling you, if we sit here and start talking about how high the trees ought to be and what they are, hell's going to freeze over, and we're going to end up with, with what is it? A camel is a horse designed by a committee. I think is that's my paraphrase of something I'm trying to recollect. We need to move this forward.
Double hump? or
Madam
single
Chair.
hump?
We need to move this forward and in my mind, quit the discussion on the landscaping because it's to all the points raised. It can't be discussed at this point in time because we still need the final engineering. Let's have somebody present us with a final plan when this is done and we approve it or we disapprove it and we.
So just so I can understand where exactly what your intent is, are you suggesting that we table this resolution?
No,
No,
I want to vote. I
just-
want to vote on the contract.
Vote on the contract, but
I wanna-
table the discussion on landscaping?
But just, yeah, I mean, we aren't even, that isn't even appropriately before us, I don't think. That's not even before us. What's before us is the contract.
Yes, the contract is before us. Ms. Bates.
I'd like to remind this committee that the concept is clear. This resolution was passed by unanimous consent. It was passed unanimously in the E&E committee once. And then we had a special committee to answer a lot of questions. And then we had a unanimous consent in the Environmental and Energy Committee the second time. The complete and final engineering plan must come after commitment from the county. And I would ask for that commitment today to move forward towards the board.
If it's appropriate, I would call the question. I'd like to have the vote.
I think we've got just a couple more questions, and then please do so. Yes.
Shepro, yeah, I think in my mind, we had questions about the landscape plan, but not what was it going to be, but was there going to be one? And I think that has certainly been answered. Clearly, there have been discussions with the neighbors. I think several times we've heard that this is conceptual at this point. So I agree with Mr. Martin's point completely. But I would also commend the detail with which staff has, attempted to respond to our concerns and those of the neighbors. But I think that, again, I agree and I would support a call to the question at this point.
Mr. Sanchez.
I'm tempted to call the question, but I see that Ms. Klee has not finished her presentation, so I wonder if it would be more appropriate to let her finish and then go to the vote.
Can I ask how much longer the presentation is going to last?
There's just one more slide. So the fencing estimates are included. Just to quickly cover that, the county is committed to upgrading the fencing. And there have been 3 additions to the resolution that was passed at the Energy and Environment Committee. All 3 of the additions are to demonstrate the commitment to the neighbors that we will work with them on the improvements and to the fencing to make sure that it is aesthetically pleasing. Should they be able to see it, and also to elevate the south berm along the west of Brisher Road at a height of 4 to 5 feet. And then also that landscaping will be maintained. So all of these 3 are to cover the fencing, the landscaping, and our commitment to the neighbors. So these have all been added to the resolution.
Now I'd like to call the question, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, Todd Wallace, can I
Yes, Mr.
make
Wallace,
a comment
yes.
before the question is
Yes,
called?
we'll have the question called in just a second. Yes, Mr. Wallace.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. I'm a member of the Energy and Environmental Committee and there's been a lot of consideration given to this project. And first of all, our staff members have worked exceptionally well in considering all the details and have been very receptive to comments from the public as well as members of the committee. I do agree with comments that were made by Mr. Iqbal, and Mr. Cameron regarding the basis of the project without going into detail about landscaping and that sort of thing. I think that really when the original RFP was done, there was not the detail known that is now known. The bottom line is that the spoil pile that is on the site needs to be reduced. It needs to be reduced or eliminated. That really is causing all of these other problems that are coming up. So I don't know if the answer is that a new RFP needs to be issued, taking that into account in order to do this project. But we were told when we asked the question that if the spoil pile is removed, that it would not be economically feasible to complete this project. And so the project is not being done as it should be done. It's being done as well as we are able to do it. So I think that really, and I agree with Mr. Martin as well, that we cannot hammer out all of the details in committee. But I really think that this goes to the basis of the contract. And Madam Chair, I agree with you as well, that there's a lot of detail that still needs to be worked out. And a lot of that we've only discovered over the period of maybe the last 2 weeks. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Are there any other?
I just have a point of information question.
Yes.
The 3 additions, and I should have probably seen this, are these an amendment to what was on the agenda, or is what got to the agenda include those 3?
Those were included at the Finance Committee.
Okay. So no further action to add those is required this morning.
Correct. So before we call the question, I just had a conversation yesterday with my own association regarding my landscaping. And I want to share with you, the homeowners, that I empathize with what your concerns are. I understand them. You buy a piece of property and things change and they shift. If this does pass through and we go to the full board, we have to assure the neighbors that their voices will be heard, that we will do everything we possibly can to make sure that not just the site is mitigated, but it's made enhanced. That we ensure that this solar field becomes an asset that they take pride in rather than are fearful of. Because we all agree, again, that we cannot continue to have energy sources that are not renewable. We have to take a look at how we design that and how we move forward with that. But yet that change comes with the cost of both aesthetics as well as a view and concerns. So those thoughts are very important for our neighbors. They've taken the time, 9 days off of work, great passion, great energy, a great commitment. And these are our residents that we have to be mindful of. These are our taxpayers. And we want their input. We celebrate their input, and their input cannot be not heard because of a cost of $198,000 annually a year. They're valued. So with that comment, could we please call the question?
Madam Chair, I do have one
Yes.
final question.
Yes.
And I guess, John, you might be the person to answer this best. If we were to proceed with this today, to move this forward, to send a signal to the developer, but this last fella that spoke, I couldn't be in more agreement that that berm is just too high. Not the berm, that where the solar arrays are going needs to be lowered to a flatter level. And I'm being told now for the first time that financially it doesn't work to do that. If we approve this today, but then 2 weeks from now say, I'm sorry, we can't get it as low as it needs to be. What happens? Are we committed to moving forward? Where do we go with the project from there? What happens?
And that's a question that the group behind you is wanting to hear as well.
Point of order.
Point,
Maybe
yes.
Today, this is we are just a recommending body here today.
Correct.
So whatever we do, presumably it would go on to the full board. And then maybe your question becomes more pertinent at that point. But I mean, if the county board votes to approve a lease and authorizes it to be signed, I think that's it.
So we're
don't-
recommending it, truly recommending it to.
I don't know how we approve something to move it to final engineering. What happens if during those final engineering, we can't come to a agreement on that? And Jody, you've come to the podium, maybe you can answer that a little bit.
Theoretically, that is the case of any development. You never have, as Mr. Martin pointed out, you never have final engineering done at the zoning stage. Now we don't have a zoning stage because this is a permitted use of the property. But every development theoretically, I suppose, when they started grading the streets, if they weren't grading it the right way, the governing authority would say, stop.
Can respectfully, I've been on this side, both sides
Yeah.
of this 100 times. This is so incredibly unique. I don't know how many times anybody in this room can say, we voted on a solar farm to be put in. This is unique. I mean, so I just want to kind of know.
Yeah,
I mean, what happens if we can't come to an agreement on that because it's just a cost factor, but it impacts the residents? What do we do?
Ms. Walnick, do you want to
I
speak?
don't know that the issue of landscape approval is unique. I mean, happens
Please,
all the time.
please. Ms. Walnick.
Just a point of clarification, you're speaking about the north berm, right?
I'm speaking about the array where the hump, where the land's not flat and it undulates.
Yes, it's
So
seven.
we're talking about bringing down some of the peaks that it's being suggested. What I'm hearing is that they probably aren't being brought down low enough. And we can't do that. Not that we can't do that, but financially, it doesn't make sense to do. I'm not comfortable with that. Yeah.
Correct. So the GRNE is lowering the berm to 770 and they've already looked at it and it needs to go down to at least 770 to have a flat enough area to set their solar arrays. So that's actually in the purchase power agreement that the berm will be lowered to 770. Lowering it further beyond the 770 point, the mass of the berm gets significantly larger. So to get it down to 770, you're talking about the peak of the hill as opposed to the vast extent of the hill. So in our calculations, and we had a very similar project with the cross-country course. So we have bid numbers from 2019. The cost of fuel was less at that time. To lower the additional height, which would be an additional 15 feet, would get it to approximately what that elevation is of that valley. It's 30,000 cubic yards of material that would need to be moved. We don't have area on the site in order to place that material, so it would have to be loaded onto approximately 3,000 trucks and hauled off to a clean construction and demolition debris facility. The cost to dispose of it and haul it to a facility like that is about $72 a cubic yard based on today's prices. And so we would be looking at about $2 million to do that work. And the total savings of the project are about 4.5. So it would be half the savings of the project. We might be able to lose a little bit of that material, about 5,000 cubic yards on Chris's area by the multi-use building. But still, we'd still be looking at upwards of $1.5 million to move that material.
Okay. I appreciate that quantitative measure. That I mean, Drew probably understands that better than anybody, but that helps me understand that. It doesn't help me reconcile, should we just find a flatter piece of land to put this on versus putting it there, and that's a different conversation, so.
Totally different conversation, and that is out of this
Understood.
context here. Ms. Bates.
You want to call the question, Madam Chair? There is no other place that we can put this due to the master plan, due to the fact that the savings comes from putting it on our own property, what's called a behind the meter system, so that we're not incurring transportation fees, transmission fees from ComEd. We're not paying other taxes and fees that go on your ComEd bill. And so this is the only property that we can put this on. It is property that we own. It is a permitted use, so it doesn't need to go to the zoning commission. It was already zoned properly for this use. We're trying very hard to reach what's really a compromise solution. We're taking the berm down some of the way. We love our neighbors. We appreciate that they're upset. We're trying to compromise with them and reach something that we can all live with. Shave off 15 feet of the berm, put in as many beautiful trees as we can, and mitigate their view. To spend $1.5 million or $2 million of the taxpayers' money is unconscionable to me. But putting in $50,000 worth of beautiful trees is a good solution, we hope. So you know how hard Ivy and Jody have worked on this to make sure that we reach the best possible solution for everybody.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Martin.
One last comment. One last comment. So nobody feels like they're being led down the garden path. This project works if the berm gets dropped, whatever the prescribed amount is on the plan. So nobody should walk back into the room and think that we're all going to see something that's 4 feet lower or 8 feet lower or ground level. What you're voting on today is the berm being lowered, what is it, 7 feet? Is that the, that's what is before us. And nobody sitting here should believe that when they walk in 6 weeks and look at something final, that maybe that's going to be lower. For all the reasons that Cliff brought forward, or that Jody brought forward through Cliff's question, we need to understand we're voting on the contract as it exists, and the contract as it exists works for the county because the economics work, and the economics work in significant part because that berm is going to be lowered the prescribed amount and no more. So that's the reality of the situation, and all the efforts have been made to offer proper screening and a sightly existence for neighbors. But it's not going to work if we're going to lower it lower. That's the vote today.
Okay.
And that'll be the vote next week.
So are we all ready? I think we've had lots of conversation and a robust conversation. So I thank you for that. And again, thank you for all of our neighbors impacted by this decision for coming to speak. So may we please call the vote?
We don't know till the vote.
We don't.
To put it on the consent
Right
agenda.
now, it's to put it on the consent agenda.
Okay, this is for item 7 to I guess, go on consent for next meeting.
For next year, or next meeting, yes.
Right, for the county board meetings. Okay, so I don't have a motion in a second.
Should we read it? One, approving a power purchase agreement and lease for solar energy with GRNE Solar Field 05 LLC.
Okay, and who moves that?
Mavis
Gums will
Bates.
move it.
I'm sorry, Bates will move.
Gums will second.
Berman already
Berman
moved.
moved and Bates second.
Bates seconded.
Okay, got it. I've got it reversed. All right, okay. Bates,
Yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis, G5, Ford,
Yes.
Raz,
Yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Melina, Sanchez,
Yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Sturgis,
Yes, to move it to the next.
Pepe.
Abstain.
Okay, and then Shepro.
Yes.
Okay, that passes.
Motion passes. It will be moved to the full board next week.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that we approve item number 21, the authorization approval of personal replacement hiring as needed for building management and information technology department.
Second, Surges.
Second.
I think Mr. Surges asked for it to be set aside, so you can have your first opportunity to speak.
All right, so this, as we've discussed this in several other committees, when you look at our purchasing and hiring, not our purchasing, our hiring practices and our when we bring new people into the county, we are not very expeditious from interview to acceptance. We jump through too many hoops when we're just trying to replace somebody that's left. The essence of this is to say, if it is simply a replacement for somebody that was already budgeted, that isn't increasing in any way, shape, or form, we would like to be able to, for the department heads, given the signature of Madam Chair, to be able to move this forward and not be delayed, waiting to go from this committee to finance to exec to the board. So that, I mean, right now, the competition for employees is too fierce. We need to be able to move a little bit quicker. And that's the essence of it. I have handouts if anybody would like to see them. Jamie is here to answer any questions. I'm hoping. Jamie is here to answer any questions that you might have. This is not meant to circumvent. It is not meant, it is just an expedition. That's not the right way to say it. It is just expediting what we already do, and I'm hoping for your support.
Mr. Martin, did you have a question? I saw your hand. No? You're just a stretch? Okay.
You have a motion in a second?
We do
Yes,
need a motion
Okay.
in a second.
No, I'd be happy to support this. For many of you that weren't here, many of us were, but the hiring freeze had its origins back in the Great Recession. And so we decided to be really strict about the positions. And sometimes we would decide to maybe not replace somebody that was that left in a position. So I support this 100%. It puts everybody through a lot of work, including this board and the committees, just to fill a position that's already authorized. So I support it 100%.
Okay, before we all get confused and forget this, may we please have a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Berman, I thought you asked for the motion. I
No.
Seconded.
initiated that and
Yeah.
it was seconded.
Oh, you did
Yes.
the second? Okay.
Right,
Okay, very
and,
good.
and I
Okay.
am being, Jamie would like to make just a quick comment because this is an amendment to an existing, go ahead and.
The resolution that was in the packet was a motion to do this for just building management and IT.
Right.
After discussion, we think this would benefit all county departments as we all struggle to hire and need the ability to move a little quicker in today's market. So this would allow for replacement hiring for the county departments with, as Mr. Surges said, Madam Chair's signature along with the department head for all county departments. So this is actually as amended to include all county departments.
And which we normally don't like to do is amend something at a committee level, at this level. Yes.
Shepro. So what step or steps are being removed to make the process work faster? Cliff, if you can answer that, or Jamie.
We currently require a board resolution for replacement hiring. So we're actually eliminating the need for the full board to approve a replacement hire.
And that would be for any position,
Any
subject
position.
to the hiring freeze.
Yes.
And maybe it was a different hiring freeze, but there was a hiring freeze back when McCoy was chairman. And,
No, that's too long ago. Yeah, this one. I think this one dates back.
there was a big case involving the state's attorney involving that hiring freeze, but in any case, I guess I'm troubled by the notion that we're completely bypassing a resolution, but maybe we ought to stop having a hiring freeze that hasn't been a hiring freeze really for years.
We're not asking that, Ken.
I know,
We
I
are
know. I'm
Simply
just saying.
asking that if it was budgeted and we are just doing a replacement for somebody that left, we need to be expeditious enough to get the candidate that we want. And the way we're doing it right now adds 30, 45, 60 days. Candidate's taking a different job.
I agree. I just
It's
think
that
maybe
simple,
there's
so.
a better way to approach that.
The one question I have, and to confirm, I think already what I know, but I just want to confirm it, because this is a new hire, there may be some difference in the pay. It may not be exactly the same, because the market has changed. So as long as it stays within the restriction of the department's budget, there's no issue. But if they need to come to us because they're short of budget, additional costs, how do we mitigate that issue?
It's your signature that stops it.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah,
but
you, I mean, you can just stop it and say you need to run through, you need to run through committee on this. You're asking for more money than what was there.
Sue,
Yes.
but only if
Oh,
she
hold on.
doesn't sign it.
If I don't sign it, it doesn't get through.
But if you
Yes.
do sign it, it does go through.
Yes, that's accurate.
So theoretically, tomorrow you could hire a county administrator.
No,
No,
because that's a
come
new
on.
position.
That's not a
That-
position.
That's a new
That's
position.
replacement.
Replacement.
Replacement, not new people.
Yeah, Ms. Molina, yes.
I think,
Uh.
can you hear me better now? So this talks about resolution 17-0202. Have we talked about maybe getting rid of that resolution and amending it?
I think this was the most expeditious way that the state's attorney's office said to handle it. So that, I mean, we just,
It just seems like we're doing like, kind of like what Mr. Shepherd said, double work. If we have a resolution that looks like it just needs to be either amended or just.
I am
Get
not
gotten rid of.
suggesting in this resolution to lift the hiring freeze. I am just looking for a way to expedite a replacement of an employee that may have left us. That's all.
So I guess I'd like to see a copy of that resolution just to read it for myself. I'm trying to find it, but I guess, Jamie, if you can send me a copy of that resolution
17202,
Yeah,
absolutely.
just to review it because
I think
Like,
Mr.
yeah.
Fonstock may have a comment
She's talking about the resolution that's amended today. We have copies of that.
of 1702,
No, the amended resolution.
the amended resolution.
Yeah.
okay.
But you
yeah.
want to see the original resolution.
I'd like to see the original because this is a totally separate resolution. And it just seems like we should have been working with the original resolution and just maybe getting rid of it instead of creating another resolution to amend that resolution. But not looking at it.
Understood, but that is not that is not the spirit of this. The spirit
Okay.
of this is just, it is. we are
Because
not acting-
it started with 2 departments and now it's the whole county board. So it's kind of something that we shouldn't be talking about at this level. I'm not completely okay with it. I think it should go back to committee and be reviewed one more time, but
Madam Chair?
we will vote on
Yes.
it.
So
Oh, wait,
the-
excuse me, Ms. Molina, are you all
Yeah, I'm
fine?
done.
To answer one of those questions, the key difference is whether or not within a department's personnel budget, I could create a position and hire a person that I don't currently have. So when you file your budget, you have very defined positions that were approved. The IT department has 39 positions, so we would be filling one of those 39. We could not add a 40th person just because we have the money to do so. It has to be one of the defined positions that's in our position control, and then we could fill the position. I think the original moratorium that they had, they purposely did not want you to add additional headcount. Obviously, the benefit costs and the additional salary that has that carrying costs in future years. But as long as you're within your head count and you're within your budget, I think that's what our biggest concern is. We've had technicians on the lower end of the salary spectrum. We've lost 3 in the last 2 months. So trying to hire those back. Our meeting for admin is the day after county board. So if I know that it exists and I file the resolution for admin, I have to wait another 30 days to get through county board again and then start the process. So our best case scenario right now is probably 2 months to 3 months before we can get a person hired.
Okay.
Save all the money. You lose the person. You lose the candidate.
Bean counter, bean counter.
So we have a question at hand, and then we'd have to go through a vote to approve and to amend this resolution. There has been a suggestion that it goes through all county departments. The current resolution is just for building management and IT. So Do I have any motion to amend this to include all county departments?
Caius moved.
Isn't that your
Bates second.
I originally made the motion to approve, and I thought,
The motion, the paperwork that you have, I believe, was specific to IT and buildings.
Correct.
The amendment is to extend that to all county departments.
right,
Correct.
good.
Go.
Bates second.
So did you get that?
So we're going to have
Oh,
Caius.
okay, hold on. We'll
I
have
have a
discussion.
procedural question.
Let's move Bates seconds. That'll open discussion on that. We'll call that vote before we call the full
Okay,
vote.
to accept all departments, all right.
Yes, Mr.
This,
Martin.
I'm asking if this is a substantive enough change that it would have had to have been on this agenda and published before it's presented. And if it's not, we can talk about it today, but I don't want to.
For all departments.
We went from 2 departments to every department.
Mhm.
And my question is that, and I don't know the answer
Okay.
as I sit here, but to me, it's a fairly significant, I understand the motivation. It's a fairly significant change.
Vincent's in the room, if we can ask Vince, if that would be.
Yes. Ms. Wadnicki?
Weren't paying attention, were you? A motion that was for 2 departments and we're now extending it to additional departments. That wasn't published. Is that amendment too broad to be considered? And so the vote should just be for the primary 2 departments? Or is broadening it to multiple departments acceptable?
I would have to check on that. I can step out of the room and see if I can find out. I don't know much about this. I wasn't involved in this resolution at all, so.
Since the urgency is for those 2 departments, go ahead and vote for those 2. And if we need to bring it back through for the other departments, we can.
Do we need to rescind our motion?
Rescind the motion for the amendment.
Ms. Wadnicki, I know you had a comment to make.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't see this as an emergency situation, so I would pass the resolution as it reads and next month take up the other departments.
Agreed.
specifically.
Agreed. I think we're all in agreement with that.
Yeah.
So we have rescinded that. So now we can go. Are we ready to vote? Yes?
Up for the question, yes.
Okay.
Okay. 2 departments.
2 departments, I'm sorry. Okay, Bates?
Yes.
Sorry? Okay. Berman?
Berman, yes.
Ford? Ford?
We'll get it next month.
Raz?
Yes.
Gums?
Gums, yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
Caius?
Caius, yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Molina?
Molina, yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Strathman?
Yes.
Surges?
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe?
Tepe, yes.
And Shepro?
Abstain.
He still passes.
Passes. Okay, very good.
It didn't waste any of your time, Mr. Kenyon.
Okay, God bless.
And the finance part of the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so next, Mr. Froz.
Yes, ma'am. Transportation Chair Fraz speaking.
Human Services.
Human Services.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, of course.
One item.
Juneteenth.
Mr. Sturgis.
Housekeeping item from Human Services establishing the Juneteenth as a holiday in Kane County.
Is that a motion to approve?
That is a motion to approve.
I've seconded.
Second, is there any discussion on this?
Just a question, Shepro. Why do you describe it as a housekeeping item?
This is my understanding is, Jamie, that this is being done at the state level and we're just falling into compliance. I call that housekeeping.
That's fair. That's
Okay.
the purpose of my question.
Yeah, nothing more than that.
Right.
It's not like we're creating something new here.
Yeah,
This
I
is
mean, it's a
we're-
federal holiday and a state holiday.
It's that simple.
I believe we're obligated to follow state holidays.
Love you, attorneys. You're the best.
Any other discussion on this? Call the roll, please. Are you ready to call the roll on this?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay. Bates?
Yes.
Berman?
Berman, yes.
Davis is not here. Ford?
Yes.
Raz?
Yes.
Gums?
Gums, yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
Caius?
Caius, yes.
Martin? Molina?
Molina, yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Strathman?
Yes.
Surges?
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Pepe, yes.
and Shepro.
Yes.
Very good, thank you. Now transportation.
Transportation report, Fraz speaking. I have 6 items. I'll move all 6 and ask for a second.
Second, Surges.
Surges seconds. Madam Chair and Board, in the interest of time, I'll just say these are all routine items. They're all fully budgeted. I'd be happy to answer any questions on any of the 6.
Drew, what, Shepro question?
Shepro.
Number 3, what's the, what street is that?
There's several streets. Give me 1 second here. Knoll Creek Drive, Knoll Creek Woods, and Allen's Crane Woods. Those are the subdivisions that are being discussed. And these are all, let's see here. Let's see. The roads are unposted, so the speed limit is assumed then to be 30, and this would put them at 25. And these requests from the township all come from the Township Highway Department. We and KDOT just have to approve them.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes.
On item 6, I don't know if I'm going to vote no on that one. So does that take it off the consent agenda?
Okay, so we will pull number 6 from the consent agenda for the full board meeting. Just so everybody knows, item 6 approves KDOT to start negotiating for a 6.1 parcel, 6.1 acre parcel of land on Long Meadow Parkway.
So do we vote on it separately then?
We go 1 through 5, correct?
Yeah, so I'll move 1 through 5.
Okay, good.
And Mr.
Second, Surges, 1 through 5.
Surges adjusts his second.
You ready to call the roll?
Okay, Bates,
Bates, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Raz,
Yes.
Combs,
Combs, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Pepe, yes.
and Shepro.
Shepro, yes.
Passes.
Passes.
Okay, then I'll move item 6. Need to ask for a second.
Second, Berman.
Call the roll, please.
Oh, wait, I
Discussion.
believe There's discussion.
Discussion, sorry.
Oh, discussion. I almost missed it last time, so.
I was hoping.
On behalf of my constituents in the northern part of the county who are obligated to pay this toll and who object to the size of the project and also the toll of a bridge which tolls people to cross a bridge in their own town and pay money. And also even with regard to savings that would cost the average person that uses it a lot, $200 a year additional. And 47%, and I'll just use that as a quote from the past board meetings. You're
No,
gonna
that's
see 30%.
high. That's high.
Yeah, okay. You can have rebut. For a good portion of the toll goes to just administering the collection of the toll, which is completely an anathema to me to collect money, to pay that much. It's way beyond usury to pay that much just to collect the money. I will vote no.
I have
Any other comments? Yes.
a question for Mr. Fraz. Drew, does this have any impact on collecting tolls for the
No.
project?
This is land that's needed to complete the project. I believe section C2, is that correct, Tom? C2 is our last section, which is on the east side of the river between Route 25 and
Yeah, this is actually our last land acquisition for the entire project. This is part of the mitigation agreement with the Forest Preserve. The Forest Preserve requested that we acquire this parcel of land as part of the overall mitigation requirements. So it's our last land acquisition. It's not needed for the roadway, but it is part of the mitigation requirement for the overall project.
so this land replaces some land that had to be built over and provides this land to the Forest Preserve.
Okay, very good.
When,
Any other
when does it
questions?
open?
I'm sorry, could you,
We,
Surges, I'm
well,
sorry.
the original goal is next spring. I think we're looking at maybe midsummer, but we hate to put a
Mr.
day on it because we're finishing that last site. Everything's done except section C2. So we just got to finish that last link in the chain. And I guess this is somewhat historic today because land acquisition has been a real challenge on this project. This is the last one.
Any other further
Oh,
questions?
just a reminder, I've missed one point, is that this, just to remind everybody, actually, the original point was that this is a sunsetted toll. Do not forget, when you're on the board in 10 years, you can get rid of this toll.
And Tom, can we confirm the cost of the toll? Wasn't it 30 some cents on the dollar? You know, it costs money to collect the toll. You have to collect it and process it.
Yeah, the normal toll for I'm trying to think of the wording, but a single occupancy vehicle.
No, I'm talking in terms of Mr. Caius referred to the cost of collecting the tolls was.
Oh, I'm
for-
sorry.
Yeah,
I apologize. That would be approximately 30 cents on the dollar.
30 cents rather than
It's
47.
It's about 30% of the overall cost would be for the operations of the tolling.
So you're off by 34%.
And I still would not encourage my children to get a credit card that has 30% interest. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think we've.
I tried to get done quick.
It's always a good input. Are we all done? May we call the, okay, call the roll?
For item 6, Bates,
Abstain.
okay, Berman,
Berman, yes.
Ford. Ford. Raz,
Yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, no.
Martin,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
No.
Strathman,
Yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Tepe,
Zepi, yes.
Repro.
Pepperell, yes.
Passes. All right, very good. I believe that there is no need for executive session. We now move on to our committee reports. Are there any committee reports? Patience.
I want to get us out of here, ma'am.
May I have a motion and a second to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second, Berman.
Shepro. All in favor? Aye.
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 Bye.
The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.